this is Grace from NFP Connect, and I am connecting communities with CEO of Soul Cafe, Rick Prosser. Hi, Rick.
Hey, Grace. Great to be with you and your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it from your little garage because you're in quarantine or have been in quarantine.
Yeah, I flew into the country about 12 hours after the government imposed a quarantine of 14 days, and I got released just yesterday, so I'm very thankful. In saying that, I didn't get released to much. Everything shut down.
But who's quite grateful for that.
Yes, that's
All
true.
right. So I've got a few questions that I want to ask for our community, being that you're one of the organisations that's on the front line and will continue to be on the front line for our community. How has COVID impacted your organisation?
Yeah, well, as everyone has been impacted, obviously we've had to be extremely flexible in what we do and the service delivery of what we have to our guests. So a number of ways we've had to create measures and protections. Initially and always constantly is the protection and safeguarding of our team, our staff and our volunteers to ensure we're implementing the correct procedures to protect ourselves from this virus. So we've had to separate people to ensure that there's no contamination happening if one person gets taken out. So we're trying to safeguard our capacity with our key people. And then our service delivery, obviously, we were meeting up in our dining room and it was a convergence of help. We've now gone down to the street and delivering warm takeaways, frozen and so on, other resources. So we've had to change everything right up. As well, we're trying to educate our guests, some of which and many of which are probably going down the line, it's a conspiracy, it's not real and all this sort of stuff. So just as recent as yesterday, throughout the lines, separation up the street, we're going to have heralds walking up and down. Hey guys, just want to let you know, these are the resources available. And so on other street corners, we've got people they can talk to specifically around their needs. So we've just had to change things right up to ensure we fully engage with those that are engaging with us. We really want to hear what their needs are, but we also want to educate them with all the available resource that's happening right now. We know that businesses and cafes and so on are encouraging let's not use cash. So we're trying to work with the bank to educate people on cards, just to let the people know this is the way things are moving. And so we're trying to resource people as best we can. We've given out a mobile number that people can text us and get in touch with us to let us know. And so we're probably in greater contact than ever actually with our guests. So we've as we're all adapting and adopting to a day that we're uncertain of, we weren't prepared for, and we're not sure what's coming tomorrow or next month.
So what have you learned or are you learning through this process?
Well, I think we've all quickly learnt we're all on an even playing field now. I think, look, things surface in crisis, and I've learnt that our team have risen to the occasion to be adaptable to change. Our volunteers have, and so we're very thankful that in the quickness of change, we're seeing a great level of flexibility to change up. And I think that's really important that we adapt and adopt as quick as we can. So I've learnt and learning that we need to stay very flexible, to adapt to changes that are current right now.
You're right. Yeah, that's really important. So how have you found any good programs, support systems or resources that are helping you?
Yeah, look, whiteboards have become friends to our team. To ensure that we get all the rapid changing information in front of people because it is changing so much. And of course, communications, we've got to continue communications but to be honest, everything's narrowed and pared right back. And so sorry?
In what way?
Well, how we used to operate, all the resources that we had have been pared back. A lot of all the outreach services that were happening, well, they've had to pull back in, and rightfully so. And so, we're trying to designate and align people so that, I don't know what our listeners are and how they're coping, but it's almost like information overload. All the rapid change and the rapid announcements and compliance issues. So we're trying to compartmentalize that to certain people. Can you look after that, and can you just become the expert on that? And so that we're all not trying to have to gather this information, but we can be briefed by that. So I think that those sort of systems and procedures are really helping. In terms of programs, we haven't found any new good programs. We're aware of some that are emerging that could help, but right now we've just adapted what we're delivering.
Sorry, we didn't sort of talk about this at the beginning, but just for anyone out there that doesn't really know what Soul Cafe does, can you just brief do a brief on that?
Yeah, of course. We're a non-government grassroots charity at the top end of Newcastle, corner of 100 Watt Street. We call it a convergence of help. Many services and helps come into our venue. It revolves around a meal, and so we're feeding and serving meals to many people throughout the week. Over most days, we're open 13 days in 14. We've pared that back, obviously, with this to be Monday to Friday as well. And so a whole bunch of wraparound services and support with legal services and recovery programs from addictions and all sorts of challenging needs, as well as practical stuff with haircuts and chiropractors and hearing specialists. All that sort of stuff comes in, Centrelink and so on, just to help people navigate from the extremely difficult and vulnerable place they're in into a healthier place. Yeah, as well the conversation of actually and engagement. We're all experiencing isolation, and so for most of our guests, our conversations, the only conversations they would have.
Yeah. So from the services that were to what's been, because everything's kind of been scaled down. So is it now just a meal and counselling and health, or what's your priorities?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the basic need of the meal actually is a priority and the priority, but as well right now, of course, all that wraparound support has withdrawn with the current restrictions that we support, actually, quite as best we can. We're trying to endorse that, particularly to our public community and supporters. So we're doing up, as late as yesterday, we just workshopped a card that can fold up that most of our vulnerable guests that may be on the street or in those places can carry with them, of resources and contacts, education about what COVID is, and if there's any symptoms that you're carrying, what to do next, which is very, very important. And obviously our response mobile number that we've put out, as well as a whole bunch of other things that's going to help them at this point of need. And of course, in isolation, we know there's going to be a couple of things that could well emerge, with that being suicide and domestic violence as well. So those numbers and contacts are very relevant to our guests, to the public actually, of what to do and where to go and who to call in a place. And so obviously Lifeline's numbers on there, and other connections and friendships that we have that work with those other groups and people. So we're trying to resource and educate our people as best we can, knowing that whilst we are getting information pouring into our lives, most vulnerable people aren't. And so we're trying to take on the responsibility. Let's educate and help people as best we can along that journey.
What is the hardest thing about working from home?
Actually, I'm beginning to like it.
I don't like it.
I'm beginning to like it. I think, look, obviously the face-to-face contact, although I was face-to-face with our team yesterday, is a little bit more challenging, that you're not tangibly with people. In saying that, this format through Zoom has become a great friend, and I'm sure most of us now are become upskilled in Zoom and other technologies to help us stay connected and communicate and be effective in that communication. And I think one of the great pluses in this actually is, well, the plus of being working from home is you're not clouded and crowded by a whole bunch of stuff. The fluff and stuff's all gone from our world, and so we're thankful for that. But also in this sort of format of communication, I feel that there's a greater connection and a deeper conversation happening. Yep. And so I think that's very valuable, actually, particularly in this place of isolation. I haven't heard people talking about the weather, haven't heard people talking about the climate, haven't heard people talking about water restrictions, haven't heard nothing like that. The conversations are deeper and they're penetrating more. How are you feeling? What are you going through right now? And then when it comes to organisation and business, these are the priorities, guys. That was a priority, but right now this is front and centre. And so we're beginning to just address really what's critical right now. Forget about all the long-term stuff. Forget about some of the programs. They're on the shelf right now. Let's focus in and hone in on really what's right now important. And so I feel that actually in our isolation and in our communication methodologies that we're using now, there's a lot more clarity coming to our listeners, and we're listening more in conversation. So I feel actually some tremendous things are coming out of this. Absolutely. How we operate yesterday will not be how we operate tomorrow, and we're learning through this, and I feel that some of the learning that we're gathering will change us forever on this.
Absolutely. So you answered the blessing question. Like what are the blessings that I think you've noticed from this? But so any advice or charities that you like that are going through similar things, this?
Yeah, regular communication, stay nimble. Know that the plans today will probably have to change tomorrow or next week. And so I think flexibility and staying nimble is critical. Pay attention to your volunteers. If you're in a volunteer organisation and charitable work or whatever that organisation is, everyone's got volunteers somewhere connected to them. Most of them are self-isolating. Encourage them in that and support them in that, but stay in contact with them and see if they have any needs. Are they okay? Obviously, many charities and works have volunteers that have levels of vulnerability as well. So we certainly don't want to ignore or overlook those that are most precious to us, our volunteers. I think it's very important we think about tomorrow and not think too far ahead, but in saying that we also need to be thinking a month and 2 months ahead. So a couple of scenarios are really important right now. The immediate right now, being nimble with that, but also knowing that there is a future. Some of us have got funds to raise. Some of us have been hampered by all the plans that have shifted and plans for fundraising, particularly coming end of financial year. And so we need to stay in touch with people and in good communication with people.
Yeah, awesome. So Rick, like thinking about all, people want to do good and they want to help support Soul Cafe. Talk about like the logistics of that and what can they do?
Yeah, that's a really important question. We say Soul's a community response to some deep community needs. So our community engagement and the generosity of community in our region is sensational, as many of you would know. But right now, we're discouraging people to come to us and deliver us goods. We want to do everything we can to comply and support with what the government's telling us. And that is stay at home unless you have to go out. Yeah. And even when you have to go out to buy groceries for yourself, reduce that to once a week. And so we want to support that. We don't want anyone going out buying anything and bringing it to us. One, they're unnecessarily going out when they can just drop that money into our account and our fundraising. But two, we don't know who's carrying the virus. And so potentially goods coming in can be a contamination, knowing that this virus is alive on surfaces for up to 72 hours. And so I think it's really important that we right now do everything we can to endorse and support what our government's saying, stay at home.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. I think that's a really important message. I think people well-intentioned, really want to help,
Absolutely.
not really understanding the risk that it's putting you and your organisation in. So just lastly, you mentioned earlier in our conversation before I started recording that you have got you have multiple different hats. Like I never know how you can manage all the things that you manage, but you have basically collected all the churches and all the different denominations together. Can you talk about that a little bit and what you're...
Yeah, I do have multiple hats. I lead a church and work with a number of churches around the region. So we're trying to, I think what this has exposed is our vulnerabilities and how we're not prepared for some things. And so being prepared and planning and being strategic in this day is a new day for many of us, and being coordinated. And we've never had to coordinate as we are right now. Grace, you're doing a tremendous job by this, as well as other works coordinating with not-for-profits and businesses. And it's critical right now we collaborate, actually. That has to be the critical message. We're all in this together, and we're better together. And so we've compiled our first meeting today with representations of denominations as a church community response team. And so we want to be relating up to authorities, but we also want to be relating down to all the many churches and resources that we have salt and peppered right throughout our community and our region, knowing that there is great capacity there. And we want to ensure that we steward our capacity to the needs of our city and serve our city as best we can. As well, we want to cross-pollinate. We don't want people working on the same things. If somebody's worked on something, brainstormed and created a policy and a procedure for one thing, we want to reduce all our wasted energy by reproducing, and let's adopt and adapt, share resources as best we can so that we can become as effective as we can. As I mentioned before, all the fluff and stuff's gone. We're right now, this is right at the coalfaces, front and centre. And some of the needs that will surface and are surfacing. We've got people in queues in Centrelink. My neighbours work with Centrelink, and they're seeing personnel that have never visited their place before. And some of the stories are tragic and traumatic. We're thankful for the government response federally and what will drip down, but we know people will fall through the cracks, and we want to be ready. And so we're doing what we can to help to plan and organise for that, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Rick. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Can I finish with a quote? Actually, I saw Dave Hollis came across one of my feeds, and I don't even know who Dave Hollis is. I should Google him, but he said this, and I think this is really appropriate for us all right now, whether it be in our organisation or in our personal life and family. He says this: in the rush to return to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worthy of rushing back to.
Yeah.
And I just really feel that's a great word for us all. Right now, some of us are gaining more time. We're saving time on going from here to there. We're saving time on huge amounts of things. So we do have time to pause and consider life and what we're leading and how we're leading. And I think we need to ask the question, do we really want to return to normal, and what does the new normal want to look like? What can we leave behind? I think that's a very relevant quote, actually, for us personally and our organisations.
That's really awesome. Thank you so much. This is Connecting Communities with Rick Prosser. If you need any details, all his details are below for Soul Cafe and what they're doing. Thank you. Thanks,
Well
Rick.
done. Congratulations. Thanks.